Hello and welcome to the Trading Mindset Podcast. My name's Nilton Fernandez, and on our podcast we look to talk to traders that have educated themselves to successfully trade the markets today. As you know, this can be a tough gig for anyone starting out, but we look to get inside the minds of these successful traders and understand the strategies that they use, the morning rituals or morning routines that they follow, and how they trade upon the economic news. We also have much more.
Hello, and my name is Louise. I am the co-host of the Trading Mindset Podcast. I am a multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist and life coach, and I specialize in working with financial traders on their psychology of trading. In this podcast, we talk to traders about their emotions that they experience, the challenges that they face on a daily basis, and the techniques that they have used that have really helped them to get from where they are to becoming profitable traders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trading Mindset Podcast. My name's Nilton Fernandez and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Louise Normila. Louise, how you doing?
I am fantastic, Nilton. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Busy day today with work, so glad to be home. Always happy when we have a guest on the show. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Me too.
And yourself?
Yeah, I'm really well, very busy, but really looking forward to our guest this evening. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dave O'Hagan on the show. Dave and I have known each other for a few years now. Dave is a full-time trader and he's from Newcastle. Welcome on the show, Dave.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Nice one, Dave. Nice for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. Just finished the day. Well, I say a day's trading. Monday's normally a quiet day, but we've finished for the day anyway.
Oh, good.
Good.
Successful day or?
Very little on a Monday, but yeah, we've come off some decent trades today, so that's what it's all about.
Perfect.
Okay. So let's talk about trading. We've known each other for a couple of years, Dave. So, I mean, if you're happy to, let's go back to the start when you first started trading, and let's talk about that if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So I've always had an active interest in trading. To be honest, didn't really understand the complexities around it, but my journey with trading started around 2016. I basically took that opportunity to pick up what was my mobile phone back then, and basically push some buttons, whether that be buy or sell, not really understanding what I was doing in the context of trading. Went through a few false starts, as most of us do, and then basically took the decision in around 2017 to actually get some proper some coaching, really look into what trading was about, and continue doing that alongside my actual sort of job, if you like, until such time as I could push the button and essentially go live full time.
Okay, fantastic. So back in 2017, I mean, what changed then?
Essentially, Louise, I went from sort of looking at the different organizations on the internet and trying to pick the best one to actually finding a coach, a technical trading coach who I actually had a rapport with and trusted.
Yeah.
And we'd worked together in other capacities. I say other capacities, other trading organizations. But when he went his own way, I basically stuck with him, and we've been together ever since as a trading coach.
Right. Okay. And how does that work with him? You know, do you see each other kind of one-to-one online every month? I mean, and how does he sort of mentor you?
So it basically starts with the fundamentals of trading, how you go through your basic boot camps, if you like. You do your learnings and you do your tasks, all your homework, which is always the fun part. And when you do all that, when you're sort of ready to get on board, we do live webinars, live sessions. As you say, we do one-to-ones, and we just generally communicate with regards to results, how you're trading, what your strategies look like.
Mm.
He will identify a strategy, and then you essentially take that strategy and have to make it your own.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. It sounds like he's been a big part of your journey.
Yeah, really big, especially with the technical side. As you've said, Louise, we have a sort of a relationship, both sort of professionally and personally, with regards to where the work we do together. But
Yep.
the big picture of that is around understanding what trading's actually about, how you basically conduct your day, what you look for with regards to your signals, and what is your strategy, and
Yeah.
perfecting that strategy. So
Okay. Fantastic. Okay.
Dave, I mean, when you talked about, having this mentor, did he touch upon heavily the impact or ecology part of it, or was that something you learned while trading? That's a big factor that I have to sort of adapt.
that's a good question, Milton. Yeah. So as much as sort of he touches on that, we all know the psychology around trading is very specialized. So a lot of the things I've learned with regards to psychology is something that I've picked up and gone my specific way as to what I need with regards to how I am with regards to trading and my mindset. So as much as there's an understanding there, really, I've taken that task, if you like, and found my way.
Still, think heavily in that part of trading, or something that you've sort of equipped yourself with now, and that you're comfortable. You know how to deal with the pressures, or of a losing trade, for example. So you don't need to go back to it.
Exactly. So as much as we keep an active level of the psychology in place, it's nowhere near as much as you would do getting to that place. I think it's safe to say we're probably in the sort of the maintenance part now, where we just keep things ticking over and make sure my head is ready for the charts, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, if you come in, Dave, and you say Monday today, and you're feeling down, maybe Newcastle losing or something like that. How would you go into the markets? Would you trade? Would you avoid it, or would you just I don't know, put your head together and just say no, I'm going to go?
Well, luckily, the example you've given hasn't happened since Christmas, so we're doing well on that one. But yeah, if I come to the markets and I'm not right, or I don't think that the market looks quite what I'm looking for, I've learned the hard way, if I'm honest, to just pack up and walk away. There's, in my early days of trading, I would probably power through it and try and make the best of a bad day. And more often than not, you would make silly mistakes, and you would take the trade that you didn't mean to take, or something would happen, and you basically turn off 8 hours later, if not more, because of that's the sort of day it could be, and it just wasn't worth it. So now it's a case of, right, if that doesn't look like I want it to look, I won't waste my time. I'll just do other things with my day, and just turn the charts off, to be honest.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. So, as I mentioned before, we've known each other for a couple of years now. Excuse me. You're a big advocate of the psychology of trading.
Yeah.
You've come such a long way in a very short space of time, and you've done so much work for that. I mean, what was your biggest challenge? Because, we do work together. We have worked together for a couple of years now. And like I said, you've come such a long way. But going back, if you can tell the listeners the things that you sort of struggled with, you found challenging in regards to your sort of mindset and emotions around trading.
Well, you start down this path, and there could be one in a million things that when you start, that actually comes out that you weren't even aware of. But the big things when you look back, I mean, for me, it was the FOMO, the fear of missing out. I was worried in case I missed the trade of the day. down to a deeper level around basically being embarrassed to be seen as a failure, or even down to worrying that I can't pay the mortgage next month. So, understanding all of that really, and taking actions to not think about those things when they do sort of pop into your mind. That for me, getting over those hurdles were the biggest things. And it's just, everyone's different. Everyone has their own demons to get over. But all I would say is, like I say, for the listeners, is just to try and understand what those are. Take some time and really just work on them and expose them. Because if you don't expose them, then trading definitely will.
Yes, yeah, good. Really good point. And that is a valid point as well in regards to the awareness, because most of what we do is kind of on autopilot or subconsciously or subconscious, and so having that kind of conscious awareness as to what's working and what's not working in regards to trading is the first step, because you say, okay, well, this isn't working. What do I need to change? How am I going to change it? And then you work through the steps for that. But for you, going back, FOMO was the biggest challenge, and that changed quite quickly for you, didn't it, Dave?
It did. And you need to understand, again, I'll come back to this, the trader needs to understand themselves. For me, like you say, Louise, it was the FOMO, and I would take a bad trade just because it looked like the best trade of a bad bunch. And I'm sure a lot of traders can relate to that, where you've sat at the charts for 7.5 hours, and you get the slightest whiff of a signal, you take it, and it instantly goes the other way.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get all those feelings about, oh my god, it's personal. It's watching what I'm doing. It knows when I'm going to push a button. All those sorts of things that every trader probably goes through in their life.
Yes.
That in turn basically opens up a whole new can of worms, and everything just comes flooding out. So it's something that you really need to look into and do something about. For me, technical education with regard to the trading just isn't enough. You need to basically understand what is going to cause you a problem. You can understand any candle type, you can understand any pattern, every strategy, but as soon as you're sitting in those charts, and it does the simplest thing of, right, it takes a candle away, the exposure there is just, it's going to rip you apart.
If
you're not ready for it.
Definitely. Yeah.
Dave, I mean, Louise has mentioned you've worked.
Yeah.
How has she helped you? What did you ask her to focus on mainly?
It was when we worked together, Milton. We done exactly that. We worked together, so it wasn't necessarily me telling Louise what I needed to. I use the word fix very, very loosely when it comes to this, because I'm very aware that there's a big sort of mindset conversation that goes with this. But actually, it's working together to understand your own fears, your own worries, your own issues, and then to agree a path that is right for you. Whether that is, whether it's intensive one-to-one sessions, or whether it's, buying a pack of recordings and you essentially going to do the work in your own time. You as a trader, you have to understand what you need. And I think I was lucky the way it's because I kind of knew what I needed to do with regards to my mindset, but I didn't know how to go about doing that. Yeah. And that's where I think we worked really well together. And like I say, because we worked well together, it happened quite quickly.
It did.
So,
it did. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned there in that little section there that fear being one of the things. Could that fear stem from, when you make that transition from being employed to a full-time trader, and then having to worry about, oh, right, I need to make sure I can pay my mortgage, for example, which
Yeah.
then leads to FOMO. You then say to yourself, well, if I don't make a trade today, then, I need to make more money tomorrow, sort of thing. Was that?
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
That's you're very right, Milton. To be honest, that's a very sort of true statement. I was quite lucky in the fact that the work I've done, I've gone from being employed to self-employed to being a full-time trader, which again is, you look at trading as a business. I'm sure we'll talk about, but that safety net gets ripped away very, very quickly, and you are the sole provider of your income. Nobody's going to be sitting there paying your pension. Nobody's going to be sitting there giving you a wage at the end of the month. It's all on you. And that, again, if that's a fear that you have, or you haven't done it before, you're not used to you're not used to that emotion. Again, it will sort of find that chink in your armor and just expose it.
Mm-hmm. That is a big thing, isn't it, Dave, for traders? It's the transition from going to having that secure job or career to going into kind of saying, right, I'm going to do this on my own now. I'm going to become a sort of full-time trader. That transition can be very, very challenging for traders.
Yeah.
I've seen it many, many times. Yeah.
Yeah, Louise, it's huge. If you're not used to that environment, if you're not used to being your own boss or creating your own income, the moving away from being that employed person, it's sometimes too much, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
we've talked about this a lot around. I firmly believe you're sort of a product of your environment, and like I didn't start out as a trader or expecting to be a trader. I'm from a very working class background. Where you are told to basically save for a rainy day, and you had to be seen to have a job, and you're stuck with that job. Even, I'll show my age now. Even to the point where when you got a job, you're probably expected to have that job for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until you sort of step away from that even your friends and family don't really get what you're trying to do, and you have to have the vision and the sort of the confidence to make that first step and then evolve from there.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to do, and like you say, if you're not used to it, or you're not used to running a business, it can have a real negative effect.
Of course. And I guess, adding on to that, if you're sort of the only breadwinner in the family, or if a person's the only breadwinner, then it's that pressure, isn't it? It's that pressure to pay the mortgage or the rent and the bills. And it's like, it can really, really be challenging because, and like you said as well, sort of working for yourself, it's just a new environment. If you've never had a business or worked for yourself, there's so many different aspects to it, isn't it? But Going back, Dave, to what you said about the, your beliefs around, from your childhood, we are a similar age and we must be because we've got very similar beliefs. I was always brought up to believe that, you have to work really hard to see success. And of course there is a lot in that, but it's interesting because I've heard from a lot of traders that when they've told their family or loved one and loved ones that they're, going to become a trader, some of them have found it quite difficult with judgment.
Yeah. I'm very lucky because myself and my partner, we are both self-employed and have been for a while. But when you talk to my family about what I do, how I do it, it's not something that they really grasp. Not because they don't understand what I'm doing, just because it's not part of their environment. But as long as you're bringing an income in, then that for them is good enough. It's it's the comments about, well, you haven't got a job is a common one, which I do find amusing every time it's said. But like I say, as long as you have that income, you can sort of offset that statement.
Yeah.
Did
they ever try and talk you out of it?
Not that I'm aware of, Neil. Not that I can remember. I've always been one of those people who kind of against the grain. A normal working life was never for me. I was never, as much as I tried my damnedest at school, I was never really a success with regards to the education system.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, to give you some perspective, I trained as a car mechanic at college, and then engineering was sort of my background. And it wasn't until I got into the IT space and the project management as to where I really I think I found a bit of a vocation and went from there. They never really tried to talk me out of it. They always knew I was in that space where I was probably not going to have a normal 9 to 5. But as long as you reassure them that this is right for you, then the support was there. So yeah, I can't ask for more than that.
And I guess they're over the moon now that you're spending more time with your family and your regular income, and you've got the freedom. I mean, this is what we're trying to get across to people. Obviously with the pandemic that's gone on and people struggling for money, that trading is a good way of making money and a source of income if you take the time to learn it. But a lot of people try and find the get rich quick scheme and trying to learn it without going into debt. So yeah, I mean, hats off to you, mate. So
yeah, there's a lot of you've got to be very careful when you're starting this journey. I was lucky that I found a coach that I actually trusted. But there's a lot of organisations essentially selling the dream, which I have a real issue with. I'm not, obviously I won't name any names or anything, but you do these seminars and they sell it by telling sort of 16-year-olds that they drive a Bentley after 3 months of trading.
yeah,
I mean, for me, it's not what trading's about. If that's your drive, then great. But for me, like you say, Nilton, the trading for me is around the sort of the freedom, the time, and the flexibility that it affords. But again, that only comes with the time that you dedicate to it. The education that you put yourself through, because nobody's going to do this for you. And essentially, the pain barriers that you have to sort of break.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of traders don't actually they don't realize how much work has to go in becoming good at. And they obviously see the people with the Bentleys. They're like, right, I'm going to go into it. I'm going to learn a strategy, and that's it. But there's so much more to it. There's so much more. And it's funny you should say that, because we had a trader on here who said the exact same thing about people showing off their Bentleys and stuff like that. And it's not about that. About just having your freedom and spending time with your family. And so that's why I want to do it. I'm not there like you are, Dave, and going full time, but that's the goal. So yeah,
it's quite frustrating because it kind of tarnishes the world, the trading world, if you like. In some cases, we all know that when trading goes well, it can be really, really sort of lucrative. But like I say, it depends what you're looking for in life. I mean, for me, as much as I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say no to that side of things, but that's not what drives me. My drive comes from the ability, the potential, and the ability to sort of spend that time with my daughter, or sort of, have the time to help with community projects and things like that, rather than just sort of sitting in front of charts for 18 hours a day, trying to make as much as you possibly can. There's a big difference between, trading for the Instagram appeal and trading because it's actually what you want to do.
Totally agree, mate. Often find that these trade you overtrade basically because they get greedy, and that's where mistakes happen, and that's when you end up doing revenge trading. When I first started out, that's exactly what I did, and I ended up losing a heck load of money. Now I just prefer to just take the swing trades, set it up correctly, and just leave, as long as I followed all my rules. And if it works out, brilliant. If it doesn't, then I know that I've done what I set out to do in terms of my rules, and it's just a trade that hasn't worked out.
Exactly. And that's another thing that you have to get your head around, that, society tells you that mistakes shouldn't happen, but actually when you get down to the level of likes of trading or being in business, you learn by your mistakes, and you have to make mistakes to get over those issues. Trading's not 100%. You don't get it right all the time. You have to take those bad trades to get the benefits from the good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, can we kind of talk now? We've talked about the psychology, the mindset, and your mentor, how you started. But let's talk about, if we can share it for the listeners, what you trade. Talk maybe about your strategy, your risk management, journaling, and so forth. If we can sort of talk more about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So as we've talked about, my trading has massively evolved over the years, to the point now where my day is essentially structured before I even start trading. So I have specific times of the day where I'll allow myself to look at the charts. When I'm not looking at the charts, I'll either be doing educational work, or I'll be, doing other things which benefit the strategies, so back tests and things like that. But when I look at the strategy, I keep it to a very simple strategy right now. I've got a couple of indicators, which there's a MACD in there, there's an RSI, and that's pretty much it. I trade the GU, so cable, or GBP dollar for anybody who's new to that, and I also actively trade the NASDAQ as well.
Yeah.
I'll limit myself to the number of trades per day. That's probably a max of, depending on my time frames, because I do look at different time frames during the course of the day. If it's a 1 minute, then I'll limit myself to less than 10 trades per day, which some people might think is a lot, but it's a 1 minute chart. What I generally look at now, though, is a 5 minute chart where there's 1, 2, maybe 3 trades per day.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll look for a certain number of pips, or a certain percentage based on the account. And when I hit those, I'll stop. If I lose those trades and have a specific risk, I'll stop.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, if you can make the mistake of, well, you've hit your risk limits, or you hit your loss, and you go over trading. You double your lot size, and you try and make the whole thing back, which just basically spirals.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And there's a fine line with that, isn't there? But you're very good with, discipline and walking away now. But I have to say, I've seen, your strategy, your charts, and your weekly kind of plan, which is very impressive. I mean, going off track, you've got years of experience as a project manager.
Yeah.
And I guess this has helped, having that experience and that expertise in that field, to really, I guess it's helped with trading, hasn't it?
It certainly has, yeah. I think I touched on earlier on that it's probably 90% of the psychology, the emotion, and the environment, as opposed to sort of 10% of pushing the button and having a strategy that works.
Yeah.
Every strategy works to an extent. As long as you've got the emotional stability, you've got an account size which can handle it, or you've got the time to take. You can trade against the market, and at some point it's going to work if you can hold it that long. But actually, what I try and apply to my trading and to my life is that trading's a business, and that business has to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a daily trading plan which I follow, and if it doesn't go right, I follow it even more. I don't bend the rules on that plan, and I also implement that plan onto a weekly schedule and calendar. And then I have sort of targets, goals, and objectives, which, to be honest, could be 3-month, so quarterly goals and objectives into yearly goals and objectives, which I break down into sort of quarterly and 7-day. And I try and stick to that religiously, to be honest, because the last thing I want to be doing is going against my plan and, like I say, sitting here for 18 hours a day, probably doing the wrong thing.
Exactly. Because all of this, Dave, doesn't it? It really, even before I know you've got your morning routine and you you have this fitness routine, which is fantastic. But even before you've started your day, you know exactly how each hour's looking in a lot of respects, how your week's looking, your objectives, your goals. I mean, it's already there, isn't it, in your mind?
Yeah. And I think that's where every trader needs to have their own vision of what that looks like. You can, as much as you can do the education of what the chart should do, that chart does have repeating patterns, but it's different every day. One strategy which worked yesterday will not necessarily work the next day. So to basically reduce the stress and let's call it what it is, the anxiety of each day, you have to have that sort of structure in place.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel, like I say, from kind of years of experience as a project manager, that if you don't have a plan, then you don't really know where you're going. So you have to do that and get those fundamentals in place for you as a trader and as a person as well.
Yeah.
I'm the same, Dave. To be honest with you, I like to have structure. I like to know what my day's going to look like before the day's even started. So I totally agree with you. Without that, chaos.
Yeah.
And then that's where like pin, and then you're pondering on what you should have done and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
it's even down to, you can relate it to pretty much every part of your life, even to the point where if you go to the gym, for example, if you have a plan, then you're far more efficient with what you do at the gym than if you're not there. If you don't have a plan, I should say, sorry. So there's no reason why having that plan doesn't make your day better. Yeah. Even if you have a losing day at the charts, if you have that plan and you limit yourself to the amount of time, then you've probably limited your losses. So it works on so many levels.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, I'm exactly the same as both of you. I have a plan, on a personal and professional level and with clients and so forth. For me, one of my incentives is, if I'm having like a little bit of lack of self-discipline, is I say to myself, you know what, I'm going to give myself a reward at the end of the week, whatever that is. Is that something you do, Dave, or you just kind of...
Yeah. It really is. Okay. Like you touched on the journaling as well, Louise.
Yeah.
As much as I have a schedule over 7 days, and I have my standard structure in that schedule. I also, my week changes based on the business. This is something that I don't do every week regarding the podcast, so that's scheduled in.
Yeah.
And as part of that, I use a daily journal, and that daily journal helps me just to focus to see where I've come from, and also just to allow me that reward. Because if you can see you've hit your tasks and you've completed those tasks, then why not have a reward at the end of the week? Even if that reward is to sit down with your kid and watch a film.
Yeah.
You've got to give yourself some benefits in doing what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Because we're so kind of... a lot of us can be in the mindset of what we haven't got yet, what we haven't achieved. Yeah. But if we kind of reframe that and say to ourselves, well, actually, I have achieved a lot, and have almost, and what have I achieved at the end of this week or the month? And by the way, I'm going to reward myself. It reminds us that actually, even though we may not be exactly 100% where we want to be right now, we've come a long way.
Yeah. And that was if I'm honest, that was a big thing from probably my sort of earlier years, if you like, where I was quite material about certain things. But actually, when you look back and you looked as to where you've come from, and this does relate to the things like the journaling and the structure. You understand that actually you do continually progress.
Yep.
And what was important 3 months ago may not be important now. In the same token, that what's important tomorrow you may not know until you do what you need to do today.
Yep.
So you have to keep that record and manage manage your objectives, basically.
Yeah, very wise words. Yeah.
Before we wrap up the show, Dave, what does Dave O'Hagan like to do if he's not trading? I mean, you mentioned about doing some community project. That's quite interesting. So I'd like to just touch upon that. What do you do? It's
something that has become more important to me probably the older I get, to be honest. You know, as a family, we've settled into a community in the Northeast, and both myself and my partner have a real interest in making that community better, whether that be from an environmental perspective, whether that be from a homeless perspective. So we both work in that space. My partner more so than I do right now. But what that looks like is around essentially me offering my time, Nilton, more than anything else. You know, I touched on a homeless point there, where if you can offer your time to sort of help out, and this is not me sort of trying to build this up. This is not something I've been able to do as much as I'd like to at the minute. But even going down and ordering a meal at the homeless hub and having food there obviously provides that organisation with funding. You know, trading again, when you get trading right, allows you that opportunity to give more. You know, things like, one of the big aspiration that I do have is creating a sort of a community hub where someone who may not be as fortunate as you are needs support for something like a job interview. My ultimate goal is to basically fund something like that, which allows them to get the benefits that we've been lucky enough to have in our life as well.
And is that sorry, Dave, has that been, you know, because of your trading now, is that how you stepped into this other side of giving back to the community, or was it something before trading that you was interested in?
I probably couldn't pinpoint where that's come from, but I think that it's a good point you raised, that having the flexibility to actually go out and eat on my own terms, as silly as that sounds, you know, you go to eat somewhere who does something from the community, and if you're not there as often as you are, because you have to go somewhere to work, which may be away from your home, you don't get to see that. But because I've seen that, it's sparked an interest. And like I said, my partner, she works heavily with other members of the community and brings these things to your attention. Even things like littering, you know, beach cleans. I'm lucky enough to live down by the beach, and you know, you see the impacts of litter on our local environment. So it's things like that actually the flexibility of trading forwards to open your eyes, essentially.
Yeah.
And give back.
Yeah.
And give back. Yeah. You know, I think if anyone who's in the sort of same space we are, when you read certain authors or certain coaches in this space, you know, giving back is one of the most important things you can do.
Oh, yes, exactly. Definitely. I think it's an absolute wonderful thing what you and your partner are doing. It's so important, like you said, Dave, to give back. You know, even if we sort of give an hour's time or 10 minutes of our time just to speak to somebody perhaps who's lonely, or like you said, you know, prepare a meal or anything. It's if we could all do something like that, it would make such a difference in the world. But I think what you're doing is really inspiring.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's not where I'd like it to be, but you know, we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get there, mate. I'm sure you'll get there. Well, we'll have to wrap it up there, guys. I mean, Dave, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. It's been really insightful. Louise, if you have anything that you want to say before we wrap up.
Of course, Dave. Thank you very much as well. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. It's gone really quick, actually, hasn't it? It's felt like it's really gone really quick. So, I mean, Dave, do you want to talk about anything else besides trading? Should we talk about football, or are you happy to kind of?
I think we'll leave that one.
I'm pretty happy with where we are with football right now. I'm sitting here quietly smiling to myself.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
All right then, Dave. Well, listen, thanks again for coming on the show. And listen, if you like what we're doing, guys, or to our listeners, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot more interesting guests coming on the show. So please hit the like button, send some comments. And if you want to be on the show, just let us know and we'll schedule you in. Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all. If you are a trader who is struggling with their psychology and you would like more information on the Trading Mindset program, then please visit www.hypnosisfortraders.co.uk. The program is changing the lives for so many traders, and you can read and watch so many success stories. You can also access a free 21-day transformational audio. This is to help gain better self-discipline as a trader. So please visit the website. Thank you.